Hey everyone, this is Lara Love with Walk by Faith Ministry. This is my totally informal book trailer for my brand new book. Yay! It's called The Greatest Lesson of All. The subtitle is Answering God's Call. It is the third book that I have written and published in 6 weeks or less. If you want to call that a miracle, I would agree with you. Totally a miracle, totally by the grace of God. Who could write 3 books in 6 weeks or under and have them published in that time too? Nobody. Well, nobody that I know. That's why I say I couldn't have done this on my own. I give God the glory. This book trailer is totally informal. As you can see, I'm in my completely fancy jacket. Nothing in my life is fancy. This jacket is probably from a thrift shop or hand-me-down. I can't even remember. And this is my sweater underneath because it is cold in South Carolina right now. Anyway, I'm here to tell you a little bit about my book. I don't know about you, but the best way I could find out about a book is to read it myself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up from the start and read a little bit to you from a couple of different sections. In fact, let me back up a minute. Let me read to you off the back of the book and tell you a bit about the book as a whole. It says on the back, you've wanted to know God's purpose for your life for as long as you can remember, or maybe you're already living it. So how do you answer when God calls? Do you accept the call, screen it, avoid it, tell him you'll call back later, run the other way? No matter his purpose for you, no matter the call, no matter your response, don't miss the greatest love of all. Please join Lara Love, that's me, of Walk by Faith Ministry on an altogether serious, albeit delightfully hilarious, adventure as she dives deep into the Bible's book of Jonah to discover the trials and triumphs of answering God's call. As Lara Love challenges and encourages you to apply the revelation gleaned from Jonah's journey to your own life, get ready to learn the greatest lesson of all. So now you probably want to know a little bit about the book, right? Is it really worth buying? Well, I leave that to you, but I'll just read you a little bit and give you a sort of a sneak peek. The very first chapter of the book, the chapter title is called Arise, and this is how it reads. Arise. The word looks so lonesome by itself, doesn't it? Naked, alone, without other words to keep it company in the same sentence. It's not mushed in with all sorts of other words where it can get lost in the shuffle. I stuck the word all by itself for a reason. It would be too easily lost, overlooked, forsaken, surrounded by company. And I don't want you to miss its significance. You may have heard Jonah's story preached a zillion times. You may have studied it more times than you care to remember. You may have learned about Jonah as a child in Sunday school. You may have read about Jonah in a children's book long ago. But if you were anything like I was until recently, you may have hurried through the book of Jonah in the Bible and missed the message God has for you. You might be amazed by what you discover through a slower, closer, more careful and detailed study of Jonah's story. And you might be surprised by the revelation and power God can pour through even a single word, like this one, arise. Do you know God could use this one single word to change the entire rest of your life? Do you know he could use it to change the course of countless other lives through your life? Isn't it something how as we hurry through our lives, we tend to rush over words, even words God could use to change our lives and even the universe as we know it. Before God used the prophet Jonah to save 120,000 people and their animals, God spoke one single, simple, and straightforward sentence to Jonah to transform Jonah's life and to save an entire city called Nineveh. And this life-changing sentence began with one word, arise. I'm going to skip along a little bit in the book to give you sort of a taste of it. This is truly an incredibly serious, life-changing book, and I absolutely mean it. However, I want to tell you there's a lot of humor in it too. That's my nature. And as you can tell, if you can look down, which you probably can't do because the camera's in one place, but I do want to tell you that one of my wheelchair dogs just pulled up so that he could join me in this. I'm sorry that the camera won't look down and show you. But anyway, typical distractions. Chapter 10 is called Making Mud Pies, and this is how it reads at the start. If you've ever made a mud pie, running your hands through the mushy muck, watching wet, heavy gunk fall to the ground while big chunks of chocolate-covered yuck start to stick to your fingers as you work to shape your hopeless pie, you know what it's like to find a mess on your hands that you know good and well you got yourself into in the first place. And you figure there's only one way to get out of the stink you got into. Wash your hands of it altogether and forget you ever got into the mess. When the mariners woke Jonah from his sweet slumber and told him to call on his God in case his God could get the whole ship out of the stormy mess it had found itself in, Jonah had no trouble discerning his God from their gods. He knew exactly who God was. He knew his God was not their gods. He knew good and well the difference. And he knew perfectly well that he had no intention whatever of calling on God to get them all out of the mess he had gotten everyone into. Jonah wasn't about to go back into the presence of the Lord when he was still on the run. If you've ever made a mud pie, maybe you can still remember the oh-so-sweet feeling of clean water running all down your fingers afterward, all over your hands, sloughing off each and every ounce of ick until your hands had never felt better. You knew you owed a debt of gratitude to the kind soul who generously took of her time to turn the kitchen sink on for you, who stood there as you washed your hands and held back her tongue from scolding you, and who went the extra kind mile to turn the cold water knob off when you were all done ridding yourself of the muddy mess you had made. She even handed you her favorite dish towel, the one handed down through who knows how many generations. When you dried yourself off and handed back the towel, you could not have been more relieved to look down at your squeaky clean hands free from the mess. You even vowed to get out of the mud pie making business, at least until the mud called your name once more and drew you back into the muck. You just stood there staring at your clean hands, smiling with delight. You then nodded a thank you to your helper, and off you went with your brand new start. Jonah had a much bigger mess on his hands than a mud pie, most especially since he had a shipload of mariners and a shipmaster in the midst of his mess of a mud pie. But when Jonah had an opportunity to call on God to turn on the water faucet and help clean up the massive mess he had made, he did no such thing. After all, if he called upon God, he knew he would have to answer to him. And if he answered to him, he knew what awaited. All right, one more little section for you. Chapter 20. The chapter title is Why Me? Wah! Wah! The crying pierces through you, slicing through your head with the first forecast for a full-blown migraine. The crying grates at your nerves, your frayed nerves, your too frayed nerves. Sob, sob, sob. Wah! You can't get a single thing done if that baby doesn't shut its big fat trap. You're going to, well, never mind. If you had an ounce of compassion right now, or an iota of energy, let alone time, you would go down to the nursery yourself, pick up that wailing baby, and shush it back to sleep. Sweetly, of course, even if gentle isn't exactly your middle name. There's only one problem. Okay, a few problems if you're perfectly honest with yourself. There ain't no nursery, and there ain't no baby, and that wailing just turned into shrieking. And the person responsible for the crying just happens to be a 63-year-old, silver-haired woman with her hair in curlers in the middle of a 2-year-old style temper tantrum, staring right back at you in the mirror as you can't believe that God had the nerve to tell you his purpose for the rest of your life when you're halfway out the door to hightail it to your husband, the politician's victory speech party, with a press conference afterward to boot. Could the mascara smear any deeper into the bags under your eyes? Couldn't God have picked a better time to dump this news on you? That's all I'm going to read from this book for you. I just want to encourage you to check it out online at walkbyfaithministry.com. I'll tell you one thing about my life, about my books, about my preaching, about my writing, about any aspect of me. My heart, my passion, my number one love is the Lord. And when I write, and certainly in this book, I write in a challenging way. I write what the Lord lays on my heart. I will tell you something. He challenged me with this book. I did not write with any outline, with any plan. He simply poured the book through me. And as I wrote, I was convicted. Seriously convicted. And to be honest with you, the book is now published and released. I still get convicted by the message the Lord gave me here. But not only is this a challenging book and a life-changing book, it's also a message. It is a book with a message, and that message to me is the greatest message of all. And I'm going to leave you a little bit in suspense. I just encourage you to check it out. Perhaps you'd like to let other people know about the book. If you've got any questions, comments, feedback, want to write a book review, or simply want to reach out and say hello, please learn more about me and Walk by Faith Ministry, and my book, The Greatest Lesson of All, at walkbyfaithministry.com. Thank you so much. God bless you. And because this is a totally informal book trailer, I'm going to sort of run away from the camera, go behind the camera, and turn it off. Isn't that so amazing what God does in our hearts? Because I am one happy, joyful woman, and I just say praise the Lord. Thanks for watching this little informal book trailer. Bye-bye. God bless you.